Good morning and good afternoon. I am Lindsay Griffiths, the Director of Global Relationship Management with the International Lawyers Network. Today, we'll be viewing LexBlog's webinar recording, Top 5 Reasons Lawyers Should Blog. Following the recording, we'll have the LexBlog team and guest speaker Eric Fletcher available live to answer any questions you may have. Please type these questions into the chat box on your screen, and we'll hold them until the end. You'll note that there's one poll question in the session. This was during the live session and will give you an idea of what some other lawyers are doing. There's also a short exercise which we invite you to do in your offices as well. With that, I'll press play.
Hello, and thank you all for joining us today for this LexBlog webinar on the top 5 reasons lawyers should blog. My name is Kara McKenna, and I'm the Senior Business Development Manager at LexBlog. I'll be your host today. We'll keep track of your questions in the webinar chat box and also your conversations on Twitter. Our featured speakers today are LexBlog President Kevin McEwen and Chief Marketing Officer Eric Fletcher. Kevin started his career as a commercial litigator at a large law firm on the East Coast, and not long after was recruited away by Mitsubishi International, where he spent the next 25 years focusing on business development. He is also a speaker and author of Leadership Close-Up. Eric is an accomplished writer, speaker, and author of Marketing Brain Spotter with over 30 years of experience as a marketing and business development expert. Eric was a featured speaker for the October 2013 TEDx program and is number 12 on the Social Media Marketing Magazine's Top 100 CMOs on Twitter. If you'd like to follow and keep the conversation going on Twitter, our hashtag is LexBlogTop5. That's LexBlogTop and the number 5. Next, you'll see the agenda up on your screen. I'm just going to quickly walk through what Kevin and Eric will be covering today. We'll talk a little bit about the past of networking and what's happening today in the new normal. The bulk of the presentation will be spent on the top 5 reasons lawyers should blog, finishing with your call to action and time for you to hit us with some questions. Some housekeeping items before I turn it over to Kevin and Eric. First, the session is being recorded, and the recording will be made available along with the slides within a couple days. These will be sent to you via email. Second, we hope you will take the opportunity to interact with us throughout the presentation. There will be time for questions at the end, but please feel free to chat them to me via the chat box at any time throughout the presentation. That chat box can also be used for any technical questions or issues you might have. We do have one poll planned for you to answer during our presentation and one exercise. So be ready for those to pop up on your screen. Time to get started. Eric and Kevin, on to you.
Thank you, Kara. I wanted to start out talking about LexBlog's vision. Our vision is to help lawyers network through the internet. And I know that there's some non-lawyers on the phone, and so what we say applies to any professional, but our vision is to help a lawyer network through the internet. And what really matters is not the what I just talked about, the vision, that's the what of what we do. It's the why behind the vision that matters. And this is our why on this slide. We believe that a lawyer's best work comes from relationships and word of mouth. We believe that building online visibility is absolutely imperative if you hope to drive business development in today's world. And finally, we believe that the way you engage online has to be authentic. That's the only way to really accelerate relationships and word of mouth. And the reason that I'm spending a little bit of time on this slide is because if you can articulate, ask yourself, what you do, you're a lawyer, but why do you do it? What's the sincerity? What's the authenticity behind what you do? That's what you want to convey. People care about the why. That's what motivates them, and that's what will drive your business development. So, Eric, would you like to close us out on this slide?
Well, I agree completely, Kevin. The why you do what you do is what touches people. And when the lawyers that I have known through the years who wrestle with business development have one real big problem. They have an anemic network, typically. And it could be anemic for a number of reasons that really you have no control over. Maybe the network, your network's aging, it's migrated to a different industry or to such a valuable tool.
Thank you, Eric. So let's move on to the next slide, and this is about the old school networking. And Eric, you want to lead us off here, please?
Yeah, for decades, Kevin, the way that lawyers built the practice was the same. You'd go to law school, you'd do good work in school, you'd graduate, hang out a shingle, join a practice, do good work, build referrals, kind of a client at a time, and a network was built in face-to-face fashion. And for decades, that worked. But then along came these things that had disrupted that old school way of doing things, a digital disruption, an increased competition, and even new channels for the delivery of legal services, among a number of other things that have disrupted the market. So the game has changed significantly, and that's what we're addressing today. Kevin, how would you amplify that?
There's a lawyer that I've talked to in Seattle. He focuses on the technology sector, and he doesn't have any online identity. He has this great offline reputation, but he has that offline reputation. It doesn't translate online. He's hard to find, even though he's an exceptional technology lawyer. And I've been trying to help him for a couple of years now. Basically, in my opinion, this is a person he's being caught by surprise. He's a technology lawyer that's not appreciating what digital disruption means, and he's even being blinded by his own success because he believes people should know who he is, but the world has changed. They just don't. So the fact that law is being digitally disrupted, you can change as a constant in any profession, and law is not, law is not going to be able to avoid this. So, if you think about, for instance, Kara McKenna, who's on the phone from Chicago, she's our moderator today. Kara is your future client. Kara is part of Gen Y, and she interprets the world through the internet. So, with that, let's talk about the networking in the new normal. And what I would say here is that what we're trying to help you understand today is that there's new ways of discovering and finding lawyers, and chiefly that is online. So you want to make sure that you're looking in the right direction. Today, there's 2 billion people that use social media. That trend is not going to abate. In fact, by 2017, the projection is it's going to be 2.55 billion people using social media. And so I think maybe the best way to help you understand networking in the new normal is through a story. So, Eric, please take over.
Well, Kevin, when you asked me to relate a story about how I began to adapt to social media, how I adapted to the digital disruption, and the real answer is I adapted really slowly, but it began in 2002 when I realized there were some conversations going on, some professional conversations going on with a target audience that was critical to me that I needed to be a part of, and I was not a part of those conversations. Blogging, my blog, Marketing Brain Fodder, was born out of that recognition, and it really became the gateway for me into social media, into the social revolution. But again, it was a slow evolution, but it was always driven by the desire to participate in and instigate and, where possible, frame important dialogue. The same reasons that you want to be, that you want to participate in conversations with your network. Kevin?
Thanks, Eric. Let's move on to basically let's establish the case writing. We believe that it's the best way to demonstrate your expertise online. And Eric, what would you say on this point?
Well, I clearly believe writing. If you spend a few minutes with my blog, you'll be able to tell that I believe writing is a critical tool. It's your most powerful tool in the digital revolution. It is personal. It allows you to establish a personal voice. It is the tool that allows you to articulate things that separate you from your competition. And in the digital arena, writing is the tool of engagement. that is literally at your fingertips. That's why, that's the basic reason that I advocate blogging for professional service providers, Kevin.
Thanks, Eric. And I guess what I would add to that is that I want to reinforce that writing, bar none, is the best way to build your narrative online. And you know, one of the things that you need to understand is when we talk about writing in the context of a blog, it's a different style of writing. It's very conversational. And the point is that either you're going to drive your agenda online or your competitor is going to drive theirs. So it's true, you know, blogging might not be the only way to build your digital footprint, but it won't be going out of style anytime soon. And the reason for that is because the blog is a very flexible medium for showcasing your passion, your expertise, your authority. So with that, Kara, I'm going to turn it over to you for a poll question.
Thanks, Kevin. And as Kevin mentioned, it's time for our first poll. The point of today's question is that we want to understand our audience the way we suggest you understand yours. And today's question is, are you blogging? So please respond accordingly. All right, and
just looking at
here's
the
our results. Yeah.
Go ahead, Kara. Why don't you review the results slowly for us?
Looks like 60% are kind of leading the way that, yes, you're all about it. Got another 36% that they're kind of thinking about it on the fence, haven't started it yet. And then a small percent really that, no, they're not really sure it's for them. So, you know, Kevin or Eric, I don't know if you have any comments on that.
No, I'd just say that I guess my point is the reason that we did this is because, as you'll realize as we go through this webinar today, it's very, very important as a blogger to understand your audience. And it's just, the same thing applies to us. We're trying to understand you today. We're trying to understand our audience so that we can speak to you in the most relevant way. So, Eric, what would you add to that?
Hopefully, my hope is that we'll address those of you who are having questions about it. I don't, Kevin knows I don't believe that blogging is the be-all, end-all, but I think as we go through stories and the questions that we'll focus on today, I believe you'll see that blogging is an answer to some of the questions you have about how to develop business.
Yeah, and I just, we'll move to the next slide quickly, but I just wanted to say to the people that are considering blogging, there's going to be a chance at the end we're going to save about 10, 15 minutes for questions. So that will be your opportunity if we're not addressing everything that you need. So let's move to the next slide. And so this is, we want to talk about the top 5 reasons why a lawyer should blog. And let's talk about the fact that really you can't afford to be invisible. Eric, do you want to lead us off?
Well, prior to my time in legal, I had, as Kevin knows, a private consulting practice, professional services consulting practice, and I needed to build a network. I needed to engage targets that I had identified, but I did wrestle with this issue of being. Those of you that are marketers on the call today have probably heard over and over again, if we could just get our name out there, if we could just be, that's just another way of saying, if we could be visible. I wrestled with that exact same question. If you Googled my name or my service, I was buried in results after a professional skater named Eric Fletcher, a television film cameraman named Eric Fletcher, and just to confuse the issue a little bit, a healthcare marketing guy who decided he wanted to use my name on Google as well. You get to me on about page 3 if you were lucky, and usually page 4 or after. I might as well have been invisible to the targets that I was trying to reach. Social media changed that equation. As I mentioned earlier, blogging, microblogging, social connecting, those have created a strategic storyline, what we call a digital footprint. Those of us that talk to our kids about being careful about that kind of thing. But it created that digital storyline that is representative of who I am as a professional, of the services that I provide. The creation of the right kind of content, that resolves the invisibility issue. Kevin, what would you add to that?
Well, one, I think that your story, your struggle with understanding Google and how to improve your search results, it demonstrates the power of embracing social in the right way. I had a similar issue. There's a city councilman in Santa Monica named Kevin McEwen, and a few years ago, if you Googled my name, he would dominate, but that's just not the case anymore. And we'll show you some examples later on that. So I would also add that McKinsey Professional Services, one of the things they've concluded is that there's huge ROI from social media for lawyers, for professional service firms. And why is that? Well, that's because a law firm or a professional service firm is an innately social organization. And I want to repeat that. Law firms are innately social. And what that means is that law firms and lawyers depend very heavily on social interactions with their clients and their colleagues to not only carry out their work, but also to develop new business. So, this thought about being invisible, it is really, there's no path, there's no choice there. It's a false choice. You have to find a way to take advantage of social media. And Forrester research has even concluded that all business customers can be reached via social channels. Again, all business customers can be reached via social channels. And so what that means is that 98% of the decision makers are reading blogs, they're watching peer videos, listening to podcasts, and I would describe those people as passive users of social media. They are online listening, and that is a very important thing to understand. And if you look at the legal sector, 74% of in-house counsel are using social media in a listening mode only. So they're hungry for content. Business decision makers, the chief general counsel, they are hungry for content. And with that, let's move to sharing your expertise exponentially. And again, Eric, I'd like you to, I know you got a story to share here.
Well, and it really just underscores the McKinsey and the Forrester statistics, which are compelling. I'm a pretty simple marketer. I believe that marketing follows a formula, and for years I've tried to articulate that formula. It begins with smart targeting, identify a target, understand their business drivers, and build a way to connect in the context of that business driver, or in professional services we call it build a solution that connects to what your target cares the most about. It's a very simple, a tried and tested and proven formula. It's solid business development. But talking about it, as you're probably experiencing today, can sometimes just sound like blah, 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 blah. Blogging offers us a way to relate anecdotes, to tell stories, to build some context and add dimension around an expertise. Otherwise, Kevin started out today talking about the difference between focusing on what we do and why we do it. When we talk about, in a number of other contexts, what we do, that's when it starts to sound like that blah, blah, blah. But blogging gives us the capability to add some context. Absent blogging, I do sort of feel like I'm in the marketplace just kind of gaping along and with not struggling for what to say, kind of like I am right now. So, Kevin, it's your turn.
Okay, Eric, thanks. So I think that's a very helpful story, but I want to talk about research. I want to talk about two phenomena, okay? And the first one is the strength of weak and dormant ties. And I want to provide maybe 2 or 3 examples of what I mean by that. But the strength of weak and dormant ties. Weak is basically somebody that doesn't know what you know. They know things that are different from what you might know. A dormant tie is stronger than a weak tie. A dormant tie would be somebody that you went to graduate school with, or somebody that you went to college with. And the point is that what the first example is, if you wanted to go out there and find a job, you'd be far more likely, you wouldn't be as likely to find a job through your friends and your family, because they tend to know what you know. Okay, those are strong ties compared to a weak tie. What you'd be better off doing is asking your family and friends to introduce them to their friends and their friends and their friends. And that the weaker the tie becomes, the more likely those people will know something different than you. And so it's a very, very important concept. How I met Eric, by the way, I started following Eric on Twitter a few years ago, and I really liked what he had to say. And it's one thing to be social online, but it's a far different thing to make it happen in the physical world. And so I happened to have a business trip to Dallas, and I called Eric on the phone and said, hey, I'd like to get together with you. We met, we became friends. The result of that is that he's co-hosting this webinar for me today, which I'm honored to have him. The second thing is that he has sent me what I would describe as very high-quality referrals. So I have generated business because of this weak tie where Eric kind of became a strong tie. And then finally, if you've been following my blog, I talked about a book called The 8 Mandates for Social Media Success. And this is the third example. Basically what happened is Eric was doing his thing just like I was on Twitter, and he ran across a guy named Ken Huffman. And, they started following each other on Twitter. They ended up at a CMO conference together. They got to talking. They realized they had a lot in common. They realized they held a lot of common values. And that led to a relationship where Ken Huffman asked Eric Fletcher to co-author a book, The 8 Mandates, which is now, it has a 5-star rating on Amazon, and it's a very, very impressive book. And you'll see, you can go to my blog post and you'll see blog posts on it. So my point here is that when you think about the online world, the strength of weak or dormant tie is on steroids. And so I want to leave you with a thought and kind of get to the second phenomenon. Everything that you say, everything that you do spreads far beyond the people that you know. And your impact is far greater and far wider than you could ever imagine online. And that's called the 3rd degrees of influence rule. And that was studied by Harvard-trained social scientists. And that's the companion to weak and dormant ties. So my point is, what you say online matters. And if you say it in the right way, in an authentic, sincere way, it will help you drive your business development efforts. So Eric, I want to give you the last word on this.
Well, I'd underscore the authenticity part of your, I'd underscore everything you said, obviously, but the point about an authentic voice is really critical. The other thing I would say is marketing has always been about, it is more so today than ever before, about finding ways to leverage, to get leverage, to generate an exponential return. And when you start talking arithmetic, exponential return, why should you blog? Because blogging changes the arithmetic in your favor. Kevin, I know you've written about a lot of this.
Right, and in fact, I know I'm hitting you with some concepts right now with the strength of weak, social ties or dormant ties and the 3 degrees of influence. But don't, rest easy, because I've written 3 blog posts that address this. One is called The Strength of Weak Ties in Social Networking, Seek to Be Worth Knowing. The other is a guest post in business development, Who Knows What You Know is a Big Deal. And finally, Transparent Leaders Don't Indulge in a Culture of Oversharing, where I kind of examine the 3 degrees of influence rule. So don't worry about writing those down. We'll make sure that you get those. So let's turn to the third reason that lawyers should blog, and this is about the fact that your future clients, trust me, they are Googling you. And what I want you to understand is that your coveted face-to-face referral that you hold so dear to your heart, trust me when I say that that is inextricably linked to your online identity. And what I mean by that is that face-to-face referral from a trusted source, that may get the ball rolling, but your prospective clients, they will do more research online. They are going to Google your name. They're going to drive by your website. They're going to read a few blog posts if you're a blogger, and they're going to look to see if you're active on your social media, if you are active on your social media channels. So my point, you'd better have a solid digital content strategy in place, and a blog is part and parcel to that. There's research that underscores what I'm saying, and I wrote about that. The title of that blog post is Word of Mouth Referrals and Content Marketing Are Inextricably Linked, and we'll make sure that you get that. Eric, would you like to close us out on this point?
Well, we started today talking about the contrast between the old school way of building a practice, of building business and solidifying your practice, and the way things are today in the new normal. What Kevin has talked about just underscores the fact that today the formula for connecting, for establishing, and for nurturing relationships has a digital component. It is undeniable. It has a digital component that's critical to the process. Why should you blog? Because a blog is your best digital component. It's personal, like we talked about already, and it is as close to a three-dimensional kind of tool as you'll find in the digital arena.
And I love that notion of a three-dimensional feel, because that is, to me, is critical. I mean, what we're talking about is how can you demonstrate your passion, your authority, your expertise? How can you be sincere and authentic and transparent online? Again, Twitter only gives you 140 characters. So the point is that a blog is a very flexible medium. So I just want to underscore that. And now I'm going to turn this back over to Kara, because we're going to go through an exercise really quickly. So Kara, go ahead.
Thanks, Kevin. And we're going to pause now, like Kevin said, for our exercise. And I'm going to ask that you all please just take a minute and Google your name. What do you see, or what are you not seeing? And
hey, Kara,
think
slow
about
down a little bit. Okay, Kara, slow down a little bit.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. So after you've Googled your name, pay attention to what you're seeing or not seeing. Then think about if your potential client or if someone doesn't remember your name. Please also Google lawyer or attorney, your practice area or city. What are you seeing now? And you can feel free to share your observations via the chat box.
Okay, so, hey, Kara, I'm going to advance the deck so that we go to search results for Eric Fletcher. And Eric, is there anything you want to say on this?
I don't know that there's not much insight I can provide here. If you look, you'll see, number one, that I managed to displace the camera guy, thank goodness, and the skater. But the critical component to my search results are social connections. LinkedIn plays a role here, a Google Plus profile plays a role, and you'll see my blog listing plays a role in me showing up on page one. That's about contributing regular, new, authentic, and relevant content.
Yeah, and I would just draw attention to, if you look below, Eric is also active on Google+. You see about Eric Fletcher, and it says he's active in 65 circles. So I think Google+ is important to everybody. Here's my search results, and if you look at the upper right-hand corner, you'll see my photo, and that's my Google+ account. Again, it's very similar to Eric's. You see my LinkedIn. You see my a little bit about me and when I joined LexBlog. You see something about my blog, and actually what I like about this is it talks about what my blog is actually about. And then you move through that, and you see more about my background, and then you see this city councilman from Santa Monica. But then the last two at the bottom of the page, it's my SlideShare, my presentations that I put on SlideShare, and it's also my Twitter account. So I think that let's not fool anybody. If somebody knows your name and they Google your name, if you have any type of activity, Google's going to find it. But that's not how you really should be searching. How you really should be searching is somebody can't remember your name. They don't know your name. They're looking for an attorney. They're looking for somebody that used to be a corporate litigator or somebody that was a corporate litigator in Seattle. So they search lawyer, they search attorney, they search corporate litigation. That's how they're going to find you. That's how they're going to discover you. So with that, I hope you all walked yourself through that exercise, and it should be an eye-opener for many of you. So let's go to the next slide. And here we're talking about your competition, and we're talking about the prevalence of blogs in the world. And I'm going to lead this one off and then turn it over to you, Eric. But here's the point. I don't want to sound snarky when I say this, but I don't care if there's 3 million or 300 million blogs in the world. Only a small sliver of those blogs are professional in nature. But even then, blogging requires passion and authority, and that leaves most people out. So I want to repeat that. Blogging requires passion and authority, and that leaves most people out. So even when you do get to that small sliver of professional blogs, law blogs, there's a lot of blogs out there where they don't understand how to blog with passion and authority. They don't understand how to create true engagement. And that, by the way, that quote, blogging requires passion and authority, which leaves most people out, that's by a cartoonist, somebody that has a great identity online. His name is Hugh McLeod. So my point to you, and hopefully I'm inspiring you, is I believe that you could do this better than the competition. I know that LexBlog clients, they do it better than the competition, and that's both in terms of tenure blogging and engagement. So in my blog post, I talk about the eight mandates, elevating your understanding of social media. And there's a great quote in there, and by the way, Eric has some great quotes in there too, but this quote it's the concept of, if you want to establish trust online, you have to be authentic and you have to use your voice, not the voice of a brand or firm speak. So again, I want to repeat that. If you want to succeed as a blogger, then you want to do this in your own voice and not in the voice of your firm brand or firm speak. The people want to hear from you. They don't want to hear from an entity or an organization. And unfortunately for some of you, what that means is ghost blogging or ghost tweeting is a no-no. So you do not want to do that. That is a non-starter if you hope to succeed online. Eric, what would you add to that?
I would add a really hearty, loud amen if I could. I'd also say I think you do want to be snarky, Kevin. I don't believe for a minute that you don't, and that's okay by me. From a marketing perspective, nothing differentiates a professional service provider. Nothing differentiates you from your competition more than your own authentic, unique voice. A friend of mine was coaching a lawyer whose presentation focused on the typical things, on her personal expertise, on whims and things she'd authored, on impeccable credentials, her firm's practice, their depth, the fact that they had offices everywhere, a presentation many of you would be familiar with, and it was very impressive. But honing in on this need for differentiation and a personal, authentic voice, my friend acknowledged the very impressive list of credentials and all that was a part of this attorney's presentation. But as they sat in an office on the 60th floor of a downtown high-rise, my friend pointed out that there was only one problem with this presentation, and that was that between where they sat on the 60th floor and the ground floor, there were only about 2,500 more lawyers who could say exactly the same thing. Why do you blog? Because it amplifies your unique, authentic voice.
And I would add to that, I'm going to actually, before I add to this, I want to reinforce what Eric said. From a marketing perspective, nothing differentiates you from your competition better than your own authentic voice. I think that's the way he said that, okay? And it's a very, very good point. And often when I meet with law firms, I do exactly what I did with you today. I start talking about, I go through the what of LexBlog does, what of what LexBlog does. We empower a lawyer, to network through the internet. But the truth is, I want to get by that fast. I want to get to what I believe. And so I start talking about those core beliefs. And then I don't go into a presentation. I turn to the law firm, to the people in the room, and I say, so can you tell me about how would you present yourself? What do you guys believe? What is your vision? That type of thing. And often what I hear is the same thing. It kind of relates the same message that Eric just talked about in this story. And I'm very blunt with the law firms that I meet with. I say, look, I said, everybody's going to say that. All your competitors are going to say that. What makes you unique? How do you separate yourself by your values or your beliefs? And I think that is a key. So let's turn to the last reason why lawyers should be blogging, and that is to be more profitable. And I want to talk about a couple things here, but the point is that there's research and science behind the fact that generating more online leads equals greater profitability. And I'm going to get into some research results, but before I do that, I want to talk about Dave Donahue. He's become he's a client. Kevin O'Keefe signed him a number of years ago. He's become a friend of mine. He's somebody that I really admire and somebody that I really envy. I was asked to to speak on a radio show in Washington, D.C. a couple summers ago, and they wanted me to talk about successful bloggers. And I thought, why would I just want to talk about successful bloggers? I should also talk about bloggers that aren't succeeding. And Dave Donahue came to mind. And what I mean is, it took Dave a couple years to hit his stride with a blog. But once he did, and I talked about the reasons why he had trouble hitting his stride. And it was not understanding engagement. It was maybe not being personal enough in his blog, those types of things. Right? And he gave me permission to tell you today that his ROI on his blog each year is over 7 figures today. And that's business that comes either directly or indirectly to him that he attributes from his blog. So, as I said, he gave me permission to say this. It's not the type of thing I would typically disclose about a client, but you should feel free to engage him. His blog is the Chicago IT Litigation blog, and he's out of Chicago, where Kara is. He's not the only example, by the way. Guys like Dan Harris, the China Law blog, and Dan Schwartz of the Connecticut Employment Law blog, actually the URL is CT Employment Law blog, they're also successful in their own right, in their own ways, and sometimes it's not just financial. So it could be that in the case of Dan Schwartz, he's cited by the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, et cetera. It could be that he's being asked to give, speak at major employment and law conferences, et cetera. So everybody has to understand what success is, and success means different things. It's not just hard numbers. But the softer things often lead to better results, better profitability. So let me turn to the research before I turn this back over to Eric. And again, I wrote a blog post. Actually, it was a guest post. It was the bottom line benefits of blogging. And it's where we lay out the research that really supports this slide. And so if you care about profits, if you're a law firm, managing partner, if you're a solo practitioner, if you're a marketing person, this is your cheat sheet. Know this. Number one, firms that get 40 to 60% of their leads online grow 4 times faster than those generating no online leads. And just so everybody understands, the research was done on professional service firms. The professional services industry is a $3 trillion industry. Law is one of the sectors in that industry. Law in the United States is about a $300 billion industry. Law globally is about $750 billion. So understand that when I talk about the 40 to 60% of the leads being generated, growing that firm 4 times faster, I'm talking about all professional service firms. I just want to make sure I'm clear about that. second point is the greater proportion of those leads that are generated online, the greater the firm's profitability. So again, the greater the proportion of leads generated online, the greater the firm's profitability. And then the last point that came out of the research is that the #1 technique among the fastest growing and most profitable firms, the #1 technique was blogging. So keep that in mind, and we'll make sure this research is accessible to you. So Eric, you've got 30+ years experience as a marketing expert. You're a TEDx speaker. You are number 12 on the top 100 Twitter CMO list. What do you say about that research that I just presented?
The marketing today, Kevin, I boil it down this way. Business development, developing a practice, building a network, it is about coming to grips, coming to terms with a new kind of arithmetic. That's really sort of where we started nearly 40 minutes ago, talking about the new normal. There's a new arithmetic out there. A few years ago, a columnist, an Ad Age columnist and PBS commentator by the name of Bob Garfield coined the term listenomics. If you want a really good read, if you Google listenomics and Bob Garfield, the book's fascinating. Put simply, listenomics refers to this new normal and the arithmetic that we all deal with, that we've been talking about today. A marketplace in which the audience is now in charge of deciding what information they want to take in and when and how they want to access it. In the professional services arena, in law and accounting and consulting, the blog is an invaluable currency. It is one of your greatest assets in the age of listenomics. Kevin?
Yeah, I guess I would just underscore this is where empathy is really important. This is where you take off your lawyer hat, take off your professional hat. I know there's some consultants that are listening in. Take those hats off and put yourself in the position of somebody online. You do not want to be marketed to. You just don't want to be marketed to. What you're more interested in. People don't hire law firms. People hire the people inside law firms. And so they want to hear your voice. And so the whole message, if there's one common theme about what Eric and I are trying to convey today, it's to be sincere, it's to be authentic, it's to be real, it's to be yourself. And isn't that really the easiest way anyway? So, Eric, thank you for that. Let's go to the this slide now about what your call to action is. And, what I want to say here is I'm not going to repeat what's on the slide, but I do want to underscore, actually I'm going to, Eric, ask you to join in too, but I'll go first. I want to underscore the fact that, what Eric said, and again, I'm just paraphrasing, but from a marketing perspective, nothing will differentiate you from your competition better than your own authentic voice. That is really your call to action. And then it's picking the right tools. And the right tools, you want to find something that can embrace your writing style in a conversational way and give you enough characters to do it. Twitter's great, but it's a microblog. That's all. You need a blog, and you need to get in the habit of being able to write 300 to 500 word blog posts, because the truth is, given the mobility that's happening in our society, most people are going to read something that's between 300 to 500 words. So I don't think that's good news, because the truth is I think it's harder to write in a concise, brief way than it is to write longer stuff. But if you develop your muscles to do that, it becomes easier and easier. So I want to give you some homework. And I want to refer you to this 2014 report on the state of the legal market by Georgetown Law. And I think the thing that I want you to understand about this is there's a quote on page 13 by Clay Christensen. He's with Harvard, the Harvard Business Review. And basically what he is saying is there may be nothing as vulnerable as entrenched success. So I alluded to that earlier. There's a lot of lawyers out there that are very, very successful, but what worked for you yesterday will not work for you today. It may work a little bit longer, but it's not going to work forever, and you're going to have to adapt. And what I like about this 2014 report is that it really lays out and underscores the digital disruption that is happening in the legal arena. And so, basically, your call to action is to understand how to demonstrate your passion, authority, and expertise. But it's also there's an imperative for you to adapt and to adapt quickly. And Eric, what would you? I know you want to talk about the video link that we have here too.
Yeah, and it's the natural companion to the Harvard report, Kevin. It is, in fact, what I'd encourage you to do is it's a long video, take an hour at least and listen to the keynote, which is by Clay Christensen, whom Kevin just referred to. And what he does in this video is outline the disruption throughout history in a number of industries and overlay it or compare it to the disruption that we're experiencing in professional services and in particular right now in law. And when you're tempted to think of all of the reasons that the disruption is unique or different today and that it may not affect law the same way that it's affected other industries, the computer industry, the manufacturing industry, listen to what Christensen outlines in the keynote to this conference on disruption that was hosted by the Harvard Law School. It will be well worth your hour, I just guarantee it.
And if I could interject, Eric, if you're pressed for time, if you're really busy, what Eric just described was essentially this it's a half-page quote on page 13 of that 2000 report by Clay Christensen. So there's a kind of a quick summary of what Eric just said in that report. So make sure you go look at least that section. And these things are long, right? I don't think that you should read that report, but I would skim it, and whatever catches your eye, read that. So, well, with that, I want to make sure we're right at 45 minutes, and so I want to make sure that we leave enough time for questions. So I'm going to turn this back over to Kara.
Okay, we are going to pause here for questions from the ILN members in attendance. I'm going to unmute our LexBlog colleagues and Eric Fletcher. So if you have any questions, please type them into the chat box. Okay, Kevin, you should be unmuted.
Hi, Lindsay. Lauren, can you hear me? Or Lindsay, can you hear me? This is Kevin.
We can hear you.
Great. Let's do a sound check, everyone.
This is Eric.
Hi, Eric.
Kara McKenna?
Yep, Kara McKenna.
Kara McDonald?
Kara McDonald here.
Okay.
Great. So I don't have any questions yet coming into the chat box. I'll give everybody a couple of seconds, but I didn't know if there was anything maybe the four of you wanted to add in addition to the comments that you had shared during your presentation.
Yeah, Lindsay, this is Kevin McEwen from Seattle. I would, let me just share something about a corporate counsel study. Corporate counsel did a, hold on, let me just pull it up. Corporate counsel did basically they did an annual report that listed the top 10 law firms that are hired by Fortune 500s. And what was interesting about it is that the most mentioned firms, they're not necessarily the most prestigious or the most profitable. They're not the firms that necessarily dominate, but what they do is they tend to dominate in a particular area. And those top 10 firms, 7 of those top 10 firms are LexBlog clients. They're blogging with LexBlog. And I want to use just one as an example. Jackson Lewis is a great example because they've got 16 blogs with us. 15 of those blogs focus on workplace law. So one of the things that we try to coach our clients and our potential clients on is make sure that you're blogging in a niche. And the logical extension of that is make sure that you're blogging in a niche of a niche. In other words, workplace law, 15 out of 16 blogs focus on that sphere of law, both labor and employment and labor litigation. And that is one of the reasons that I believe they made this top 10 list, because they're resonating with corporate counsel via those blogs. So, Eric, I'm not sure if you were aware of that. Do you have any comment on what I said?
I hadn't seen that. That is it's impressive.
And I'm going to be putting a blog post out about it. So.
Great.
Go ahead, Eric.
Oh, I'm still taking it in, Kevin.
Okay.
Okay, well, I think what I'm going to do is circulate an email to everybody who was on the call to get their questions. But to feed into some of those questions, I think we can continue to play the webinar recap and listen to some of the questions that came in during your live session. So thanks all. I'm going to mute you again, and we will play this. Thank you very much.
And hey, Lindsay.
Yeah.
I sent you some links yesterday that I thought might be helpful to you and to your ILN members, and so I think that will help kind of reinforce what the message has been today.
Absolutely, and we're going to circulate those in the recap as well.
Okay, well, hey, on the behalf of LexBlog, thank you very much for including us, and everybody listening in, I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate your help with this.
Okay, take care. And Eric, I'm going to give you a buzz.
Great. Talk to you later. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Okay, let's play the questions.
Kenna in Chicago.
Thanks, Kevin. Great discussion, Eric and Kevin. Appreciate it. And we've had a lot of great comments and questions come through. The first actually came through our webinar registration form from Deb, and she wanted to know if you can discuss metrics a little and talk about how to get the most measurable ROI from blogging.
Okay, Eric, how about if I lead that one, and then.
Yeah, that's a real softball, so you can have it.
Yeah, you know what? It might be a softball, but I think for the people that asked that question, they really need a good answer, and so I think that you have to focus on the right things. Whenever you talk about ROI, return on investment, it can get confusing. And when you talk about it in the scope of the online world, I think it could get really confusing, and people can start to focus on the wrong type of metrics. And so this is what I focus on for myself, and this is what I try to get my clients to focus on. And by the way, the Dave Donahues of the world, the Peter Mahlers of New York Business Divorce, the Dan Schwartz of the Connecticut Employment Law Blog, Dan Harris, this is what they focus on. Number one, is the way that they're building their online identity or blogging, is that enhancing their reputation? And you know that without having to look at Google Analytics, okay? Number two, is the way they're blogging or is the way they're building their online identity, is it growing their network of relationships? And in other words, are they igniting weak social ties? Are they igniting dormant ties? Are they seeing the effect of the 3 degrees of influence rule happen for them? Are they making an impact? And again, you know that from the engagement you get from your blog. The third point is the way that they're blogging or building their online identity, is it positioning them as a subject matter expert? And so, for instance, in the case of Eric Fletcher, Eric was asked by Ken Huffman to co-author the 8 mandates of social media success. And that is a great testament to Eric positioning himself online as a subject matter expert in the sphere of marketing and business development. The same thing happens with Dan Schwartz, who's asked to speak at major employment and law conferences.
Okay, we are going to wrap up here. Thank you to LexBlog and to Eric Fletcher for their participation today. If you have any further questions, please email them to me, as I mentioned. The recording will also be available to review again if you would like, and we'll be providing some additional resources from LexBlog as well. I'll be in touch early next week so that we can start discussing our publishing schedule and our next steps moving forward. Thank you very much, everybody.